Hi, and welcome to another episode of WCM's Outdoor Hospitality Update. I am Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and of course, my co host is Mike Gast, writer for RVTravel.com and former vice president of communications at Campgrounds of America Incorporated, which just released their brand new study today, which
Just out today.
report. I mean, it's quite the study, so quite a lot of neat statistics in it. Boy, I can't
Yeah,
talk today. So
that report used to be a big part of my life, and I'm
yep.
a little upset that they can still do it without me. But I guess that's the way it goes when you hang it up.
they never needed you, Mike.
I guess not. Everybody's dispensable.
Our guest today is Becky and Sam Phillips, the owners of Ucamp Express in Salem, Illinois. And I was just told that it's Illinois, not Illinois. So in Michigan, where I live, we always say Illinois. So I guess I'm saying it wrong. So
you're never too young to learn either, Ben.
Yeah, I know. So is it Ucamp or Ucamp Express? Because I see Ucamp a lot without the Express.
How do you answer that one?
Well, the actual name of the company is Ucamp LLC.
Okay.
And the thought was to have two types of RV parks. The regular Ucamp RV park would be a full-fledged, fully operational, with playgrounds and like your typical RV park. But our first one, we've done the express design, which are designed to be right off the interstate, to be like overnight stops. They're not destination campgrounds. They're more of a self-serve, self-park, where basically they're situated right close to the interstate, where you can get off and stay hooked up. If you're a travel trailer or fifth wheel, or if you're towing a vehicle, you can stay hooked up and then leave the next morning and just get your rest and have your high-speed Wi-Fi, because that's what, when we travel, that's what we look for, and that's how we design the park, basically, to be kind of a park, what we'd like to find.
Yeah, and so the park you have now, for the viewers who may not have heard of Ucamp Express before, is a fully automated park, which operates. Becky and Sam do not have to be on site to operate the park. It has kiosks, so people enter the park through kiosks. So I mean, just kind of explain why you decided to kind of automate the park the way it is, and kind of how you operate it, I guess.
So we both have full-time jobs, and we came up with this concept and decided we needed it to be as simple as possible. So you can pull in, pick your site. Signage is so important. So as soon as you pull into the park, it says pick any available site. If I do reserve a site, I will put a reserve sign on that site. I only reserve a few per day, so that we can have those people that come off the interstate that did not call ahead will have a site. Yeah. So signage is so important. So you pull in and pick your site, walk up to the kiosk, run up, say I'm in site 1, I'm staying one night. You run your card, you get a receipt. The receipt has the Wi-Fi code and the restroom code.
Okay.
For the state of Illinois, I have to have a roster. So there is a signage out there on the porch that says, fill out this form, drop it in the drop box. It's that simple. And that's something from the very beginning that I wanted, because I want to keep it simple. All of us know you go to parks. Sometimes you're in line behind 4 other people. It takes forever to get in there, fill out the paperwork. They bring the little cart to pick you up and drive you to your site. It could take a half an hour. We didn't want that. We wanted this to be a simple check-in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And this isn't a membership thing at all. This is anybody can access the site. Anybody can go in and make a reservation.
Right.
And no staff nearby? Is there
somebody? Have 4 part-time people, but we run on security cameras. We run on calls. We run on text. So if you Google us, if you're looking for a camping site, you call the number. We will answer the phone, or we will send you a text that says we will call you as soon as possible. And if you need service, we're 5 minutes away, or we have an employee that's 5 minutes away. Most people, though, don't need us. They check in themselves. They park themselves. They send the kids with the dogs to the dog park. Mom and dad are making everything good at the campsite, and there's no pressure. So it really, I think, is a stress-free sign-in.
This is extremely popular concept with a lot of RVers. I know that on RVtravel.com, it's been a subject of conversation for quite a while, including with Chuck, the fellow that owns the site, who is dreamed of this type of concept taking off because there's so much need for something beyond a Walmart parking lot, and people are looking for safe, secure, convenient. And this is really the model that does that. Of course, then my head goes, as the old reporter goes, to, well, what if this, what if that? And I'm sure you guys have figured all this out, but I'm just going to ask the question. So if somebody pulls in, they make their reservation, they go in, they get their site, and then they decide, hey, we're gonna go into town for dinner, and they leave, temporarily. They can come and go, and what's to stop somebody else from taking their site while they're over at McDonald's?
Yeah, well, if they have a travel trailer or fifth wheel, of course, it's going to be in the space. But if they're in a Class C or a Class B and they want to drive it, they don't towing a vehicle. We have 4 reserve signs or occupied signs.
Like an old train station idea.
Yeah, and they're a big metal, not too heavy to carry, but the wind won't blow them over. And we keep them up here at the front. And they can come up and take one and put it in their spot to let people know that they're there, and they paid for that spot. So we hadn't planned on that originally, but to be honest with you, Mike, our guests figured that out, and they started using these signs to hold their spot. And we're like, I'll be darned. They figured out a new way to hold their spot while they run to Burger King.
Yeah, so I can see all learning things together.
Yep, I could see somebody rolling over a garbage can or slapping paper all over the place, trying to make sure nobody took their spot while they
now our website is ucamphere.com.
Yep.
And we have on there that there's limited reservations. And when we say limited, like Becky mentioned before, we don't want to reserve all the spots. We want to keep some open because we're advertised as a self-park, first come, first serve. However, we understand that some people are more organized than others, and they like to plan ahead, and they have to know for sure they're going to have a spot for this particular night at this particular time. And so we promise them on a limited basis that we'll do 5 reservations a night for those people that have to have it. But we do a lot of holding spots for people. But again, people might just pull in right now. We're at the camp office right now.
Yeah, the bell just went off, so somebody just pulled in.
So there's no set check-in, check-out time.
No,
we give them 24 hours.
24 hours, which people are loving that work from the road.
Yeah, we'll get people to pull in 11:30 at night, and they know they can sleep late and not have to rush and get out. And to be honest with you guys, Ben and Mike, most people like us, we're up 7 or 8 and we're gone by 9 because we got a lot of miles to cover the next day. Usually, I don't know if you've heard of the 3:30 rule, but people that travel across the country or long haul, they either stop when they get to 330 miles or 3:30 in the afternoon, whatever comes first. And we found that to be the case. Around 3 to 4 in the afternoon is when people start pulling in.
And that's when you're more likely to see one of us here. So one of our employees or one of us, after we get off of our regular jobs, we're usually here. Somebody's here in the evenings. Again, they don't have to be, but I have a retired teacher that works for us, Sheila. She loves that time. She loves to be here after 4 o'clock in the evening, and she loves to greet people. That's her strong, that's her thing. So she loves to greet our people. So that 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock time, you'll probably see somebody at the park.
Now, Mike, you mentioned a reservation. We don't do online reservations, but all you got to do is text us, call us, or email us, and then we'll get back with you. We found that texting is the most efficient way, and we let people have them tell us when they're an hour or 2 out, so we can gauge by the cameras. We can gauge how many sites are still open, and if we're out of town and we need to hold a spot for Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith, then we just call one of our helpers here in town, say, hey, go put a reserve sign on spot number 6.
And when I'm talking to them, I kind of ask a few questions and ask them what size rig they have. Are they towing? Kind of get an idea of which spot will be best for them. I always send them an aerial shot of the park. They're numbered, and so they can start thinking in their minds, talking it among themselves in the car. Hey, I think I really like that spot. So they kind of know ahead of time which spot they might like.
Yeah, because people with pets, the dogs, they want to be down by the dog park. And we do too.
So what happens if somebody shows up to the front gate, they haven't called ahead, or they just get to the gate and
there is no gate. You can drive through the park. So you pull right in when you get here, and as long as it is an empty site, it's yours.
All right. No conflicts with that. Nobody's stolen somebody else's place or
because if it was reserved, and again, we're not reserving all of them. If we reserved a site, it should have the sign there that says it's reserved.
Okay.
Does
go ahead,
does the system, so the system doesn't, so there's not like site numbers, and the system doesn't tell the people when they pull in that this site number is reserved?
This is very simple. It's either an open site or reserve site with a sign. And so as soon as you see that empty site, it's yours.
Well, each site does have a number.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you can access, there's the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are on the street entrance. And then you got to come in the inside lane entrance for the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. The reason we assign space numbers is our kiosk is programmed to where you tell it which spot you're in, because we can pull the kiosk at any time and ask it which spots have valid permits, and it'll tell us spots 6, 7, and 8 are valid. And if we look on the cameras and there's somebody in spot 2, we know they haven't paid. So that's when we have to go into action. But fortunately, so far, we haven't had any issues because we are travelers like most of our guests, and we kind of run that on the honor system. We just let them pay for their own stay. For instance, we were at an RV park in Missouri this weekend.
Yeah.
We got there after hours, and we left before the office opened the next day. They had no
place to put money.
No drop slot, no envelopes, no nothing. So we just wadded up some cash and shoved it in the crack of the door with a business card, and then called them after 8 o'clock and said, "You get our money?" "Yeah, we did. We appreciate that." Okay.
So I'll give you an example. This morning at 8:15, my phone dinged. We had an alert. A big unit came in. I thought that's an odd time to come in, 8:15 in the morning. But all they needed to do was dump. And so they had obviously stayed somewhere else, did not have access to that. So they walked up to the kiosk. They seemed a little confused at first, wasn't sure what was going on. And it is a different concept. We realized that. But then after he read the signage, he grabbed a little envelope. He put a $10 bill in that envelope and dropped it in my Dropbox. He was here for 10 minutes.
So you do offer that dumping service for folks? Okay.
And as we are learning, our newest thing, and I'll let Sam address that, our newest thing is dealing with electric cars.
Yeah. So one second, let me show, I can share some pictures while we talk the rest of the way.
Great.
So just a little bit I got these photos on your website.
Okay.
So let me see if I can figure this out.
He doesn't usually do this, so you're going into new territory here.
I had this up
earlier. This is exciting.
This is exciting. But I have to figure out. I had this up earlier because I practiced, because I was like, I got to practice this before I do it. And
so what's the occupancy been like? How popular is it with the traveling public?
Weekends are full.
Yeah, this winter when nobody was traveling, we had plenty of spots. And that's one thing that a small park with only 10 spots has a tendency, when you're traveling and you look ahead on your apps, whether it's Campendium, RV Parky, RV Life, All Stays, whichever app you follow, if you look at a campground and you see that there's only 10 spots, you sometimes shy away from those because you don't think there's going to be any spots available. You always go to the ones that have 50 or 100 spots. But that's one of the challenges that we want people to know is go ahead and call us to see if we have availability, because we can generally find a spot for you. Unless it's busy coming up in peak season, we might have some occupancy issues. But the spot that we chose here in our hometown right off the interstate was only 2/3 of an acre. It's not a very big site. And so we did a lot of thought and planning on the designing it to get in as many spots without being right up on it on your neighbor.
Another thing for the winter time, I think, Ben, was the we had water all year round. So that was a big concept that I got all the calls that I would get. They're like, "You guys have water this time of year?" And yes, so we had signage again that we used to tell them how they could use the water when it was below freezing. And that seemed to be very popular this winter.
Can you guys see those photos?
See the thumbnails.
Yeah, just thumbnails.
Just thumbnails. Okay, that's not good.
So, guys, what is the nightly charge? Is it very consistent?
$44 a night.
And that's across the board. Doesn't matter size of rig. Just per site.
Right.
And it doesn't vary with demand. You know, the weekends aren't different.
Well,
it's just
we have the availability to program in dynamic pricing in our kiosk. The kiosks are the same type that you'll find like around sports stadiums in big towns. And so they have various different programming capabilities where we can, like for 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day weekends, if we wanted to go in and boost the price up for those particular stays, or if there's a big event locally and we wanted to do that, we could. So from a management side, we do have that flexibility. We just kind of landed on the $44 a night price point. We have 10 spots, 9 of them are pull through. We have one back end site. The reason it's a back end site is the fire hydrant there next to the street is right there. So we couldn't move that. The fire department didn't act too friendly upon it. There's a picture there.
There you go, Ben.
Yep.
Okay, so as you can see, this was right after we opened back in August. And the main entrance is down in the lower left-hand corner. And the sites on the left side are the odd numbered sites. And as you can see, each one has a patio, a full-length concrete patio, which we think is really nice and adds features, which, again, we are probably higher priced per night than most of the spots in this area in Southern Illinois, but we think you get more. You get high-speed Wi-Fi, one of the best ones out there. You get the concrete patio. You get your own chimney. Everybody likes to have their own fire. And you get a picnic table. And we have a community fireplace. But it's designed to where you pull in the bottom left to access the inside, the right-hand side of lanes, spots. Or you can, as you can see, pull right in off the street on the left-hand side. Now, the third one up on the left is the only back-end side. If you can look real close, you'll see that fire hydrant, and that path does not go all the way through. But all the rest of them are pull-through sites.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it looks really clean and nice and pretty easy to get in and out of. So
the patios, I want to mention those because those have been so important, especially to the ladies, gentlemen too. But those are clean. So when you have 2.5 inches of rain, your child and your pet is up out of the mud. I know we've stayed in places where it rains and you step right out into the puddle. So those patios are very thick and tall and actually lift the guests up out of the weather. And I tell you, those kids love those patios, don't they?
Oh yeah.
For entertainment. But I think that's the best thing we did was those patios. Those patios have been a place where everybody gathers, and it's all about hospitality. And I think the patios are one of the best features of our park.
Yeah, one of the drawdowns, one thing we did have to change after we got open is we had failed to realize that most of the new travel trailers and fifth wheels have these steps that are fully assembled that fold up inside the door.
Yeah.
And they're hinged. Yep. And so when they pull up to the patio and they drop those steps down, the patio was a little too tall, and those steps were hitting the patio before they came all the way down, and they were not allowing the guest's door to close all the way. So we remedied that as soon as we found out that was a problem. And we brought in 2 more inches of rock and built the pads up. Of course, you can't lower the concrete. It's going to be that height. And so we've worked around that, and it's worked out tremendous. So and these cast iron chimeneas, of course, I'm a fire freak. My nickname in high school was Pyro Pete.
Pyro Pete.
And every time we go camping, the first thing I got to try to do is start a fire. Well, nobody likes to have the neighbor kids next to them trying to start a fire with toilet paper out of the bathroom and newspapers, and it just sits there and smolders, and the smoke comes right inside your windows, and you're trying to get some fresh air. So we spent the extra money. These chimeneas come from an outfit in Minnesota called the Blue Rooster Company, and they're so heavy we don't have to worry about anybody stealing them because you can't pick them up. And what these chimeneas allow to do is it draws air up through the chimney, and the fire starts real fast, and there's very little smoke, and whatever smoke there is, it's already lifted up high so that the air will catch it and it won't go in your neighbor's window.
And we've all camped at those places where you look in the fire pit and you're like, what just happened in that fire pit?
Well, and then just real quickly, I wanted to, there was one more picture that you had of the kiosk here. So this is the kiosk you guys talk about, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically what you do is you find your site. We have a sign. We have a step-by-step instruction at each site. But the most important thing is what site are you at? So you pull in and you're at number 6. So you walk up here, and the first thing you do, the screen you might not be able to say is enter your campsite number. So you hit number 6, and then you hit OK, and then it says, do you want to pay by the day or by the week? Because we have a weekly rate or a daily rate. And so you pick by the day, and then it asks you how many days or nights are you going to stay. And then you tell them I'm going to just stay for 1 night or 2 nights, 3 nights, whatever you want. And then you hit OK, and you insert your credit card in there and pull it out. And then it prints you out a ticket in that bottom window. You get a ticket that shows you when you checked in, and it's good for 24 hours. And then we have little messages like welcome to Ucamp. But at the bottom, we give you your Wi-Fi code. And then we give you the security code, door code to get in the bathroom. Illinois regulations require a bathroom for every 20 RV spots, a restroom.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of just reminds me of a lot of what you see at parking garages now.
Yes.
I mean, you do pretty much the same thing at parking garages anymore.
So what is there a stay limit? Can people stay for a month?
We are trying to stay away from long term. So we almost need to build another park. Maybe we can do that. Have had a lot of requests for full time. We've had for long term. So maybe that's something we'll look at in the future. But this is going to be our express camp.
Okay. Yeah, this is designed for 1 night stays. But it's we've had people stay for. We had a couple of workers working on local projects that have stayed for extended periods. And so that was fine with us during the slow time, usually from November to March when you're not in busy season. But during the busy season from March through November, we like to have a 2-week limit at each stay. If they want to stay longer than 2 weeks, we'd like for them to move to a different site.
But we can look at each situation, and we have done that. But we want to stay with those. We want people to be able to find a place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I know, when I talk with other campground owners, obviously, they're, pretty involved in their park, just like you guys are, I guess, and I think we talked a little bit before the show, what's the anxiety factor like as far as leaving the campground just to kind of run itself? I guess, do you guys ever experience anxiety, like what's going on?
Becky gets a little more anxious about it than I do.
What? What are you referring to?
Well, The hardest part is after a big rain, watching somebody pull out.
Yes, I will agree with that.
And they cut the corner too short, and they drag their axles through the freshly planted grass and leave a big old muddy rut.
That's my only anxiety. I'm going to say this, and I think we need some lessons out there, guys. I think maybe mom should drive sometimes.
Well, I know over in China, I think they're starting to do licenses for RVers. So, maybe I've always thought it was kind of interesting to see these huge motorhome rigs going down the road, and you don't need a special license.
I know, I agree with you.
To drive those, but
we had some wonderful guests that stayed with us for 8 days. Young couple, they were working from their RV, beautiful RV, and they came to us one night. We were all sitting out by the community fireplace, and they said, "Guys, I think you guys have a show if you want to do it, and just all of your security cameras take all the footage of people parking and the wives getting out and telling the husbands what to do, and then they yell at each other, and then they're 2 minutes later they're all sitting around enjoying life." But there are those times when they're parking where you wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so obviously no 10-year rule, or you don't really care what age the rig is. You're not checking conditions on the way in. So
no,
we're not. But that's where the price point comes in. If you keep the price point high enough, then you kind of control who will stay at your park. I mean, we have a super Walmart just a half mile down the road. And when we leave here at night, we drive down there and we see, a rig parked at the Walmart parking lot. At first it kind of hurt our feelings. We're like, well, how come they didn't come stay with us? But we've done the same thing. We've been out in the middle of nowhere, and we sometimes boondock at the Walmart, but we got to run our generator all night. And after a couple of nights of running the generator, you're like, let's go somewhere where there's Wi-Fi and electricity, and we can just sit and relax. And so that's kind of what we designed the park for.
So
Mike, another thing I think that has been very beneficial to us, and we didn't really plan this, but we are 6 hours away from Elkhart, Indiana. So we all know what Elkhart, Indiana is, the RV capital of the world. And we've had several, because I'm kind of keeping track of this when they tell me this, that are going there from Texas, from the south, we're a northbound interstate, that are heading over to 70 to go east to Elkhart, Indiana. So we're picking up those people that are getting their warranty work done. They cannot get their warranty work done at their local RV dealers because of supply demand. So we have had, I would say, about a dozen coaches go through here that are headed to Elkhart. And then if they have that warranty, they're actually being paid to stay with us. That's nice.
Wow.
I guess, what's the neighbor reaction been like? Because I know in the one photo we saw, you have a church, it looks like right across the street or pretty close to the park, I guess. What was it like getting the permits to put this park in, and what's been the reaction, I guess, from your neighbors?
Well, actually, if you saw what used to be at this corner before we built here,
it was used mobile homes.
There was a mobile home dealer across the street, and all their old trade-in mobile homes used to sit here on this corner. Matter of fact, if you go on the Google Earth images, a lot of times you'll see if it's the old image. Now, Google Earth recently rolled back their map. I don't know why, rolled it back to several years ago. And if you look at our address, you'll see about 10 old beaten up motorhome or mobile homes sitting here on this corner.
Okay.
So on our four corners to our south is a construction business building. To the west is a closed business near the interstate. To the north is the church, and there is a home to the east. So really, we only have one home. And when we went to the city council meeting, we had no issues at all.
No, we grew up in this town, and we know a lot of people at the church, and we've actually got an arrangement with the church. If we have construction workers here and they've got like a tool trailer that they need to park, the church has said, go ahead and let them park at the church, no problem.
That's great. So let's circle back on the electrical question. So your park has just got hot pedestals. It's not metered electric or anything like that.
Yeah, we looked into, and there are switches out there that we can get. I talked to one of my electrical friends, and they said, yeah, we can get a switch. but then we'd have to have a credit card swiping device at each location. And that's one more thing that can go wrong. I mean, you don't want somebody coming in, they're in the middle of a rainstorm at 11 o'clock at night and not being able to get their power on. Or in the middle of a hot summer and they got to get their air conditioner. Because I know when we travel, first thing I got to do is get plugged in so Mama can have her air conditioner.
We need our air at this
So
age.
we made a decision to let the pedestals and the water be live all the time. I know some of these self-park places have security and locks to where you can't access the sewer and you can't access the electric, but we chose to just be on the honor system, relying on our guests to be admirable and do the right thing and be honest. And we have a way to check, and we know when they're there. Security camera captures their license plate if we need to get nasty and try to collect from them. But so far it hasn't been a problem. But I just felt that that was too much infrastructure to put in place, and another thing to go wrong. It wasn't worth the risk.
So you mentioned also the advent of electric vehicles, and obviously you've got a pedestal there capable of charging, and you're going to get them, no doubt about it. And it may be a tow vehicle eventually. It may just be somebody's Tesla that they're looking for an outlet.
Right.
And so how do you handle that?
We've already been there and done that.
Been there and done that. We early on, we had a gentleman with a electric vehicle that had his own plug. Of course, it was the 15 amp plug that takes 12 to 14 hours to charge. And so he wanted to spend the night and charge his vehicle because in his own words, it was cheaper to pay our $44 a night than to park somewhere and do a fast charge. I don't know if you've checked the pricing on these electric vehicle charging stations, but there's basically three types of chargers. A level 1 is the kind you plug into your wall outlet. A level 2, it takes 220 or 240. And then the level 3 or the supercharging are the ones that like Tesla has that will recharge your car in like 20, 30 minutes. But if you price those are expensive. And the level 2 that we offer here, because basically if you take a regular 15 amp or 50 amp RV plug, we've got a charging cable that we've ordered that can plug right into the 50 amp, and it will charge the vehicle in about 3 hours. Now the going rate out there that we've found is about 30 cents a minute. So 3 hours at 30 cents a minute is 18 an hour. So that's around $54 to charge in 3 hours. So actually we're probably priced too low. And that's what this first gentleman that stopped says, you guys need to raise your prices for electric vehicles, because otherwise you're going to have all 10 of your RV spots full of electric vehicles and no RVs will be able to stop.
But it's something we're looking into. We have some extra parking spaces, and I believe at some point you will see those will be charging stations.
Yeah, because there's articles out there online encouraging electric vehicle owners to stop at RV parks because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that a lot of those sites are self-reporting right now. So you've got electric vehicle owners that are reporting campgrounds along their route as spots to charge, and the owners may not agree with that.
Yeah.
And so somebody shows up and they're rolling in with a low charge and they really need to stop and charge, and their website that they live on says, yep, this campground allows it, and the owner says, no, I don't. And now they're stuck. What are you going to do? They got to have something to get going again. So yes. We're kind of in the wild west of that whole development. So it's interesting that you're thinking that far ahead, and
we are.
And if you got room for a terminal or two that's dedicated like that, I think you're really heading in the right direction there.
We have 4 auxiliary parking spaces that we built when we built the park. We got all concrete drives and concrete parking facilities. So we've got 4 spaces and we're contemplating go ahead and trenching and putting 4 plug-ins there just for electric vehicles so they don't take up an RV spot. But if you think about it, Mike, if you think about it, somebody pulls in and wants to pay $44 for 3 hours, and charge their car and then leave, then that site's available for somebody else to pull in, or an RV. So you might get two $44 charges in a 1-day period. So it might be a benefit.
I know there's a lot of RV parks on the coast that have figured that out and have installed, dedicated spots for this.
Right.
And so, but as our typical, Ford, GM get into the electric vehicle market, obviously there's going to be a lot more demand out there, and the infrastructure's got to keep up. And there's going to be great incentives for folks like you to do this. There's going to be a lot of incentives out there, federal, state, to get on board with the electrical charging stations. And as far as the RVer public goes, I think it's slowly changing. There's a lot of folks that know I'll never own one, but you can start seeing the interest rise as the infrastructure sort of catches up. And yeah, you can make the argument that you got to make the electricity with right now you got the major is a carbon-based electrical generator, and all the batteries do is storing what you've created. That debate will, my opinion, will lessen over time. But you're obviously going to have a lot more vehicles out there, and eventually you're going to have electric RVs showing up, and with almost a double demand there. They're going to want to plug in and use their air conditioners and TVs and trickle charge at the same time.
Yeah, what I might want to touch on, Ben had asked the question about anxiety earlier. If we're not here and something seems to be awry, anytime there's movement, we have 5 security cameras on the grounds. And whenever there's movement in one plane of a security camera, we get an alert on our phone. And we have noticed at times, sometimes elderly people coming up to the kiosk, and they seem to have trouble figuring out the kiosk. Well, one of the regulations in the state of Illinois is if you advertise on these interstate signs that you have a campground, you must have a public use telephone that's free. And so we just got on Amazon and bought one of these little red Get Smart wall hanging phones that we all grew up with back in the 70s
grandma
and
used
80s,
to have,
with the push button with the cord, and we hang it right here by the kiosk. And it is bright red with a little light that lights up like a hotline.
So if grandma's struggling and I see grandma struggling, I will call that phone, and 99% people will pick that phone up and they say, hello. And then I say, hi, this is Becky at Ucamp. I'm here to help you. So.
Wow.
Well, that's great.
So I think we have tried to have a solution to every issue.
Yeah, sounds like it. So I guess you guys already answered this question somewhat. Carl Jones had asked, do you have any expansion plans to other locations? I guess my other thought is, and I think the RV Self Park in Missouri may have been where I've heard this, but I think he's trying to franchise his brand. Are you guys, is that something down the road, maybe franchising?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've already started the paperwork. Our trademark application's been at Washington, D.C. since last August when we opened. And the attorney said that's the first thing you got to do. And then when I told her franchise, she said, well, there's only 2 franchise RV parks in the whole country, Jellystone and KOA. I said, well, why can't there be 3? So she was just shocked that we would even consider it. But there is a lot of groundwork that has to be done before you officially go through with franchises. But yes, we've had such good response with everyone that stayed here. That's the next question. When can we put one in their area? And I see no reason why we couldn't put these, every 2 hours all across the United States. But to do that, you got to have time, you got to have money. So
that brings up my next question. What is the money? All the time on the permitting and everything else, and land costs? What's just the infrastructure cost for something like this? Can you give us a ballpark as to what it costs to build one of these if you've got the land?
More than you think.
Yeah, about 3 times more than what you thought it would going in. I mean, and Mike, that's kind of a loaded question because it depends on what all, if you do concrete, if you do asphalt, if you just do gravel, what your city coding and permits require and the zoning and all that. So,
and if you build during COVID.
Yeah, if you build during COVID or after the price hikes, and we went union. My brother is an architect and engineer, and he designed it for us. And with his contacts and my client contacts and Becky's contacts, we decided in this area it'd be best to do everything union. So it probably costs more than what it would normally cost. So it depends on how many sites and how big. So I mean, it does take a lot of capital infrastructure up front.
So would your concept work in conjunction with an existing business if somebody had the asphalt parking lot with 20 or 30 spots off to the side of their business and wanted to do a Ucamp? Would that be somebody you'd be interested in talking with?
I think so.
Yeah, probably, because they've got a lot of the grandfathered in permitting and zoning and everything already taken care of. And just the know-how of how to run it would be something that would just dovetail right in with what we've already done.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, maybe you have a campground and you want to create, 10, 20 sites, kind of like what you guys have off to the side for kind of like what you have, like an express park. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe there are some parks out there already like that. I don't know if I've ran into any that have like an express section, but that's kind of an interesting idea. So.
And Ben, as we have traveled across the country, most of the traveling we have done is to the west, but they're not out there. And I wish they were.
Yeah, we could, reaching way back into my KOA history, probably 15 to 17 years ago, KOA was headed down this road. They have, if you go on into the KOA directory and look up the Moss Landing, California KOA, you'll see the word express on their name still, because they were going that direction. It was the very first one that they did. KOA had done all of the paperwork, had that express in mind, with that easy in, easy out. You can imagine the technology wasn't there at the time for the kiosks and everything else. It was really a way to give people, there was no swimming pool. There's no, at the time there's no pet park. It was a limited service, in and out, close to the highway. Beautiful spot, but the concept never took off. It kind of,
they were too early. They were 15 years too early.
Yeah, I think just the technology alone, it wasn't a no touch, it wasn't a no staff thing. It was just going to be a lesser experience.
Right here is what makes this work.
Yeah,
because and the other thing, Mike, we found, and Ben, people like to stay where they've stayed before.
Yeah.
If they've had a good experience, they'll come back.
And we've had several. Yeah,
so far, well, there was a lady and a man here last night, and this is the third time they've been here.
Yeah.
So we're like, great.
So on those weekends, do you get some just drive-throughs when you're full and people drive through looking and then they drive right back out again?
One thing that's really been kind of interesting is we have had a lot of people come through the park between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning, and we know what they are. We know that they stayed at a different location south of us, and they're driving through to see what's going on here. Again, we're new, but we're like, oh, they stayed somewhere else last night. They're driving through to see what's going on here.
Yep. Yeah. So, well, I mean, it sounds like a neat park. Definitely, if I'm in Southern Illinois, I'll have to swing by just to see what it looks like. I don't actually own an RV, but if I ever get one...
Ben, here's what you do. You do like the rest of us. You start with a 10-foot army tent, and then you go to a pop-up. You buy a used pop-up, and you do use it for a couple of years, and then you get a small travel trailer, and then you get a bigger travel trailer.
And then you get the biggest.
Yes.
But then you go back down.
Then you get a toy hauler. Then you get a Class C, and then you go back down. We're going to all end up in a little pop-up trailer before you know it.
Well, I've been stuck in the tent section for about 25 years.
But
so
those are some of the greatest memories.
Hey, speaking of tent, we had a guy driving his bike cross country last year when we first opened, and he came in and wanted to know if he could pop up a tent. And we said, well, I guess you can. And we got to visiting with him, and he was doing this kind of charity ride or whatever. We just let him stay for free. Matter of fact, we opened up the office, and it was hot August night. We just let him put his sleeping bag down in the office and sleep in the office. But
it's all about hospitality.
Oh yeah, that's all this is. And it's just like Christmas every day. because we can't wait to see who pulls into the park and visit with them and hear their stories and where they're from. And some of them are really happy stories. And some of them, like the gentleman that was here last night, lost his wife 3 years ago, and he's just traveling all by himself. And so we visit and share stories.
So let's talk to him about the name. That's where the name came from.
Yeah, the logo and the name Ucamp, as you can see, we have the capital U, which is the fire pit. I'm going to do it backwards here because we want to make sure camping includes fire, and we want that to be part of our logo and the experience. And then if you'll notice, the gray line there is a highway with a dotted hash mark, and then it continues on to the letter P, and the letter P has the dotted line, which is to signify an interstate exit. So that's basically where we're always located, close to an interstate exit. But also the U is capital and the P is capital. And that's, when you take those two letters, what's that spell?
Up.
The word up. And you've seen the Pixar movie Up?
Yep.
Where the little couple that they were going to fill up their adventure book.
Yep. Fill up their adventure book and go to Paradise Valley, Paradise Island, Paradise Falls. Yeah. And so that's why we picked those two letters, U and P, to remind us that
this is an adventure.
This is an adventure. And everyone that stops here, we tell them we built this just for you, because we really did, because we want them to enjoy it and have a good memory of being at Ucamp.
Well, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, you guys have an awesome park. I know we wrote an article about the park a couple months ago, and it's just it's been great getting to talk with you today. I think we probably wrap up the show here, but before we leave, I just kind of wanted to plug Woodall's Campground Magazine. I'm editor of the magazine. Just for our viewers out there, it's a monthly print publication. It's free. We also have our daily e-blasts and filled with industry news and info 5 days a week. We have our website at woodallcm.com, and we also have our Facebook page, which is broadcasting the show right now. And everything's free, and people can go to our website and subscribe at the top of our page. And of course, everyone can catch Mike Gass. He does a lot of great articles for RVtravel.com. He just had a really great one on work camping, which I believe is on our website today. So you can also read it there. But next week, we have David Kors from the Glamping Show USA coming on, just to talk about glamping and some of the neat trends and the show that he's putting on there. So that should be great. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And thanks, Becky and Sam, for coming to visit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great concept. I think you're obviously onto something, and you know, I think you're going to be copied. I think it's just such a great concept. I think this is going to catch fire. Their demand is there. I think people just want that easy in, easy out feel that you've created there, and it's nice. It seems like all the best ideas always start with individual entrepreneurs, and that was the case in my history with KOA too. That's where the idea started from. So I think you are the pioneers in this area, and that's where stuff happens. So congratulations on the success.
Thank you. Already. Thanks, Mike and Ben. Thank you.
And hopefully things continue to go well with the franchising and expansion plans and different things. So
yes. I want it to happen because I want to stay there too.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing our viewers next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.